Hello and welcome to my Palworld review, my honest, full review of the early access Palworld. Now this review is for everyone. It's for people who are modding online. This is for people who are playing solo modding. This is for people playing default. You may be wondering why my title is what it is on this video, and that is simple. I just got done running this game on a blind default run, and I wanted to go online to see what people were saying about it, and almost no one had the same struggles I did. Of course, not many people do blind runs on games like this, but I really wanted to check and see, because it's early access, I wanted to check and see how well the devs did on guiding a player through the game. I wanted to see how the developers did kind of structuring their game. And the honest answer is not great. I'll be covering that in my review. I have lots to say, and I really want to cover it all in a short amount of time. So let's jump right in. First off, I'm going to talk about UIs and menus. UIs and menus are laid out really clean in this game. I was actually really impressed by them. They're fast and fluid. They're super vibrant. They're visual. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with any of the menus in this game. Everything is super easy. Next thing I want to talk about is the map dimensions, like how they made the map. It actually feels too big. And I don't want to say that it is too big, because it's not. You actually start running into large spots of the game, but there's nothing really in it. Sure, they sprinkle like a few recycled pals in there. It feels lackluster. That leads me to my second point, is that there's wasted space in this game. There are complete missed opportunities. The volcano and the north area have these giant mountains. This volcano and this mountain, they're kind of cool to look at, off in the distance, but once you get up to them, they are really muddy, and they are just this giant landscape of nothing that your guy can barely climb. I mean, you can climb them, but it takes a long time. It's really kind of frustrating and lackluster. Every time you need to go up one of these mountains without teleporting, you in your mind, you just know that it's going to suck, which leads to a bunch of wasted space. I mean, these things are huge. There's 2 of them on the map, and they are ginormous. I mean, it takes multiple minutes for most flying pals to go from top to bottom or from one side to the other. Why didn't they put switchbacks and cool things on them? Why didn't, everyone's seen Skyrim, right? When you go up to the Temple of the Dragonborn, that is a really cool climb. They have those big arches, and, they could have done something cool like that. Why didn't they build a road on either of these mountains? Neither of them are really designed well at all. The other thing I want to say about the map is the dungeons. The dungeons are cool at first, and then you start realizing that they're all copy and paste. They have the exact same rooms in them. They just kind of put the blocks together in different patterns to make different dungeons. It's really dull after a while, and this game's kind of built for you to grind dungeons a little bit at least. That's not great. The other thing is that once you get later on in the game, they start recycling pals. I absolutely hate when games do this. Most games take the move set of a boss, and they copy them into a different boss. This game legitimately just takes the exact image and pal and just turns it a different color and calls it something different. That's not good either. So on the maps, I would give a 7 out of 10. I forgot the menus. I would give a 10 out of 10. And then I'm going to move on to the graphics. The graphics are actually pretty visually appealing. If you guys can see the tree in the background, that's probably one of the worst things you'll see in the game, is these kind of paper mache cutout images. The mountains, like I said, are muddy. Other than that, everything else is really pretty. The sky is really pretty. Everything in the background is really pretty. The pals are done nicely. The cosmetics are done nicely. You can kind of see on my screen right now. So graphics overall, I mean, for what this game is, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, just because for what this game is, these graphics are really high end, and you don't see these graphics much on games like this. The next thing I want to talk about is cosmetics. The item cosmetics are really nicely done. You guys can see that gun in the background. It looks pretty dope. I mentioned in my halftime review, the Pal spheres look like something out of Prince of Persia. You're literally holding these like gemstone gold, inlaid spheres. It looks absolutely magnificent. The only two things I could pick out were that the saddles that you go and make, you collect all these resources to get your saddles, and you can't see them. So it would have been cool because you spend a lot of time going to collect those resources and you spend a lot of time crafting them, and they're literally not even a physical thing in the game that you can see. So the item cosmetics overall, I would give a 9 out of 10. The player cosmetics, I think the player cosmetics, as you guys can see my armor in the background there, or on my guy there, looks really, really cool. Only thing I could complain about there is that the armor tiers are copy and paste. They're just a different color. So tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, those all look different. But in tier 1, in tier 2, and so on, you have 3 armors: normal, hot, and cold. And they're the exact same armor, just a different color. That's the only thing I could pick apart on the player cosmetics. So I'm going to give that one a 9 out of 10. As far as the pals go, the pal cosmetics, I think they did a wonderful job on pals. I mentioned that in my halftime review. This is like Pokemon meets Digimon. Digimon always had a little more characteristic to it, and Pokemon was a little more bland for the longest time, especially in the earlier gens. This is the best of both worlds. I really think they did a good job with their pals in this. And, the coloring and the details and everything like that. So I'm going to give the pals a 10 out of 10. Next, I'm going to go into building mechanics. So this is your physical building in the game. So, just like Ark or anything else. It's well done. They click together really nicely. And in this game, it actually allows you to take items and basically put them in any storage unit. And then the items in that unit, you can run around without them on your guy and use them to build. It's like a teleport device almost. That is one of the coolest things I've seen in this game. It is something I give it absolute props on. I absolutely love that mechanic in this game. But I will say the one big thing I had trouble with was stairs. There is a way to do stairs. You should probably Google it or sit there for a while and figure it out before you go to build a base, like a legitimate base. The stairs do not click how all the other blocks click. You have to build everything around them in the right order. The next thing that I can talk about is when you are leveling up. So in this game, you level up fairly quickly. There are a ton of things you need to put inside your base. And I'm not going to name them all, but there's a lot. So for probably about half of the equipment you put in your base, you have multiple tiers of that same thing that help you build it faster. And those tiers aren't just something that you want, you actually need them later on in the game to build the more advanced items. The game makes you need them, which would be fine, but those items are actually different sizes. They're actually bigger every time, which means that you have to redesign your base because you only get a set amount of room to build your base. And honestly, it's really small. They should have gave you more room. That is one big gripe I had, was that I had to redesign my base multiple times. The other gripe I have is that they made this game have some sort of physics behind their building. You need to be within 2 foundation blocks of anything you put above it. So if you're building like a second story and you want an overhang, you can only overhang 2 blocks long outside of your normal base structure. This stops you from being able to place or to build over resources. So you have to put bases where resources are. And then you can't really build the base you want because you can't put the foundation blocks where you want, because they would obstruct the resources and the reason you built there in the first place. So I don't know, if they were going to give you a small area to build in and then on top of it give you resources that you needed, they should have just allowed you to build wherever you want. I think it would have made the game a lot easier. The other thing about building is that if you have a pal out, so you have your pals that are assigned to your base, and you have 5 pals on your guy at all times, but you only bring one out. Well, when you have that one pal out, he constantly runs in front of you while you build everything, and it won't let you build with them there. I get that you can just pull him in and then build away, but it's really annoying if you're like going in and out of your building and you're swapping through your pals. It's just an annoyance that they didn't have to have. Like, they should have made your pal either stick to your side or when he's at your base, run around freely. I'm not sure why he just likes to run in front of you when you build stuff. I had a big problem in this game with placing my pal box. It's like the most needed item in the game because that's how you designate that it is a base. And the fact that the reason I had a hard time with it was that the object actually flipped around at some point. I must have turned another object. So what I'm saying is if you go to put a table down and you're like, oh, I want to flip this table 180 degrees. The next thing you build is going to be flipped 180 degrees. I just happened to be building a base when I did this, and the unit that you set down has this invisible wall that goes through you, and anywhere, which means anywhere you walk, it won't let you place it because you're physically in that wall. And so it took me a long time to figure out that I had to spin it back around to its right way to be able to place it. I think that if they were going to have a mechanic where your guy gets in the way of building his own stuff, they should have just made that wall smaller. If anyone's played this and set a PAL box, you know what I'm talking about. That PAL box wall is ginormous. It is a giant rectangle. It just didn't need to be that big. So overall, the building mechanics, I would give a 7 out of 10. I think they were pretty good. The gameplay mechanics. So in the gameplay, your pals get in your way too. When you're actually playing the game, you're out in the world and your pals are running beside you and you want to fight something. When you aim your gun, your pal will get in your way. And it's one of the most annoying things because you can't shoot through them, and the hit boxes on your pals are so far past their body, you can't really shoot around them. You have to literally like wait for them to get caught on something so you can run around them. That was really annoying. The fact that you get caught on every single ledge in this game, I'm talking like small pebbles in this game, your guy will get caught on them. Every ledge that has a slope, any slope going up a mountain, any stairs in this game, your guy gets caught on. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go to the Fisherman Village and try to go up any of those sets of stairs. Every stair in this game that you don't physically build in your base, every other stairs in this game, you get caught on. Like you have to jump. Every single incline in this game, you get caught on and you have to jump. Those are slopes so you can run up them. Those are stairs. Stairs are for walking up, not jumping. The other thing I can say about the gameplay mechanics is, especially when the enemy pals are sleeping, you shoot through them. Not always, but you shoot through them. I shot through so many pals. Like, you put your crosshairs right on them. You're 20 feet away from them. Nothing is in your way. Your pal is inside his sphere, so he's not getting in the way. And you shoot, and you hit thin air. And you can sit there and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. And you'll just continuously hit thin air until you hit the exact little, hit box that thing has when it sleeps. And then it'll wake up and be like, oh, I'm good. I'm awake. You hit me. At least in this dungeon, I don't feel like I'm going to fall through the floor. Well, these guys are cool. This was that boss we got. What? It's my crossbow all over again. Jesus. That's annoying. For the gameplay mechanics, I would give a 7 out of 10. The item mechanics were really good. The weapon accuracy varies. So when you are holding your rifle, or I noticed it a lot on my crossbow, when you shoot at something, you are dead on 90% of the time. The other 10% of the time, you miss hard right or hard left, even when scoping in. And I don't know why. I never figured that out. Like, it would make sense if your gun was like deteriorating and therefore the aim was getting worse, but that's not the case. This happens right after I repair my guns and they're at 100%. You know, that was kind of annoying to have shots that you really needed to make and you miss, just like way off, just because. There's no explanation. The other thing I can say about the item mechanics is that and I think I figured this one out, is when you throw your pal sphere to catch an enemy pal and you're too close, your pal sphere disappears. Now I noticed if you're really close, you throw it through them. But if you're like just a couple feet away, your sphere literally goes into them and does not come out the other side. So they disappear. So for item mechanics, I would give an 8 out of 10. I actually think that's a little high, but that's what I'm going to give it because those are the only two gripes I could come up with. Your pal mechanics in this game, let me tell you, this is a subject. The pal mechanics are horrendous. They are terrible. Your pals F up all the time. So I have jotted down a list of these, and there are so many more. These are just what I came up with off the top of my head. Your pal animation while riding, your guy doesn't move. Pals stop letting you fly them. Like when you have a flying pal and you're on him, you're flying, you drop off of him, you start shooting your gun and you want to get back on him, you can't. How long? I think the longest it took was like 5 minutes for the game to be like, oh, you want to ride your pal again? And it actually let me ride my pal. Like 5 minutes is a long time to wait when you want to do something that's far distance and you're flying there and you just can't get back on your pal. It sucks. The other thing is your pals at your base, they bring resources to every chest. I found workarounds for this by placing chests all over where their resources are because they tend to go to the closest chest. It is annoying. Like especially in the beginning of the game, your chests only have like 10 slots and they fill them with everything. They fill them with the dumbest crap that you don't need. You're constantly reorganizing your chests. The other thing is later on in the later game, when you start building bases that have different layers, your pals start working. Like, I'll have farmland on my 3rd level of my house, and my pals standing on the ground 100 feet below it will be watering the crop or planting seeds. He's 100 feet away. But the game registers it that way. The other thing I noticed about distance-wise is that when you build a base, I built a base by a cliff. Worst mistake of my life. I set an assembly line by the wall on the edge of the cliff, and every time I tried to assign a pal to that assembly line, it said, pal is assigned to a tree. There were trees 300 feet down that cliff that my pals were attaching to or trying to cut down. That's annoying. I literally had to move my assembly lines because I could not get those pals to stop trying to go after those trees. The other thing the other things I've seen is pals stop working for no reason. You have to restart your game. Your pals get stuck on your walls of your base. If you don't build your base just right, your pals get stuck everywhere. And even if you build your base right, your pals get stuck in floors, in your pools. I mean, they get stuck everywhere. The other thing is in battles, your pals get stuck everywhere. So what I'm talking about here is like in the tower battles, if you threw Jormuntide was a good example. Jormuntide is almost useless in any tower battle because he gets stuck on everything and he doesn't attack anything because he's just stuck there. He can't move. Going back to your main base, your pals literally do whatever they want unless you grab them and throw them at something. That's like your way to assign them. But if you wanted a pal that, some pals they can cook, they can chop trees, they can mine, they can do a million things, right? Well, what if you just want that pal to mine? Or what if you just want that pal to cut trees down? You can't do that. That's not possible in this game. Another thing I noticed was in my distant bases. So you can build 3 bases in this game. I built 2 bases for mining different materials and a main base. Those distant bases were almost useless. Even though I had mining pals at them, they don't mine when you leave. You have to stand there and watch them work. It is one of the most boring things in this game. This game, I don't know how many times I had to literally just turn the game on, go to a certain area so my pals could work, and just walk away. Like, go to the grocery store, get groceries, go talk to my friends, have coffee, come back. And I was like, oh, I'm halfway there, to whatever amount of resources I knew I needed. I think overall, the PAL mechanics, I mean, this could be all over the map just because it's so horrendous, but I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10 because there's a lot of work that they need to do on their pals. And I really hope the devs put the work into them because it would be really cool if they did. The next thing I'm going to talk about is game scaling. The game scaling in this is absolutely one of the worst I've seen in a game. This is one of the things I made a rant video on this. And I was right, by the way. So halfway through this game, the progression of the game completely changes. The beginning of this game, you're like running around, freelance, not a care in the world, having a blast. Like, I had a blast in the beginning of this game. I loved this game. Up till about 25 hours in, I loved this game. And then you hit this wall. The tower levels are not spread evenly. So what do I mean? You have 50 max levels in this game. And there are 5 towers. To me, it should be Tower 1, level 10. Tower 2, level 20. Tower 3, level 30. So on and so forth. This game goes Tower 1, level 10. Tower 2, level 25. Tower 3, level 40. Tower 4 is 45. Tower 5 is level 50. Jumping from Tower 2 to Tower 3, level 25 to level 40, is one of the most horrendous things that I've ever done in a game or needed to do. Because it involves moving your base, getting a ton of resources, catching thousands of pals. And then you have to get all the resources for the pal spheres. It is an absolute nightmare. So to give you guys a bigger view of this, I said 25 hours and I was having a blast. I had 140 hours total, almost to the T, 140 hours in this game. 105 of them were grinding. That means that 35 hours out of 140 were fun. The need to grind for levels, I mean, it's just a disgusting grind. To grind for your PAL levels is another disgusting grind. To grind to hatch eggs, so you there are eggs in this game and you get 2 pals that have different stats. And you want those stats on one pal, you breed them together. And you have to breed dozens of them for them to get the exact stats you want. And then you go find another one with the other 2 stats you want because they can carry 4 total. And then you breed those together. And you have to do dozens and dozens and dozens of them for you to get all 4 of the stats you want. When I say dozens and dozens and dozens, each one takes hours to hatch. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And that's not to mention the cakes that take an hour to bake to be able to hatch. They need to cook 20 times longer than spaghetti. It's absolutely insane. For game scaling, I am going to say a 4 out of 10. Oh, and another thing I didn't mention on game scaling is the grind for resources. The amount of resources you need, I calculated it out. It's like 1,500 quartz, and they are slow. They're so slow to grind. You need, it was like 6,000 sulfur for all my bullets. I can't even tell you how many eggs I hatched. I just tried to forget my life at that point. It was like roughly 5,000 coal, 700 pal oil, and each one of these things you have to go get. Like pal oil, you have to go kill mammoths and kill fatty dinosaurs to get it. And they drop like 1, 2. The mammoths drop 6 to 10. So it's like, oh, I need 600 of these. Go find 60 mammoths. And then the butcher mechanic doesn't work. They fall through the ground. I have a video on it. So you can't even catch them for the resource, bring them back to your base, and butcher them to get double the resources because they just fall through the floor. You guys don't believe me? Watch my video on it. That was a 4 out of 10. I'm going to move on to the story and lore. There's no story. I would give it a 0. So story, I'm doing 5. And lore, I'm doing up to 5. I'm putting them together to get the score of 10. The story, I would give a 0. But they mention a story in the very beginning of the game. Towers are the key. The tree holds the truth. I'm giving them a point for that. The lore of the game, I gave them 2 points because the journals do give some sort of background actually on the teleportation of palladium, which was really neat. I thought that was really cool that they threw that in there. It was a nice touch. I gave them a point for that, and I gave them a point for the diaries because you get a small background on each main boss in the game. Other than that, there was literally no story, and the lore was just the journals and the diary, so I gave them a 2 out of 5 for that. In total, it is a 3 out of 10 for the story and the lore. And then we go to character building. The character building in this is kind of trash. So you have 6 stats in this game. You have weight carry, stamina, health, defense, work speed, and attack. 3 of these make literally no difference at all. And I know a lot of people are going to get upset when I say this, but they don't make any difference. The stats that don't make a notable difference is your work speed. I never worked in my base ever because you don't need to. Why have a stat that you don't need? I guess it's a mechanic in the game. It's an extra mechanic. But you only get 6. Why put one I don't need in there? I don't know. I don't like that. The second one, I'm going to say it and people are going to get mad, is attack. Guys, you start with 100 attack and every level you get gives you +2. You start with 100, it gives you +2. The difference between 100 and 102 is so unnotably different. Let me give you an example. I think when you get hungry, I think you drop 20. So you go down to 80. And then when you start starving, you go down to 50. So it's dropping you by 20 points and then 50 points. You can save 10 levels just by never going hungry. If you don't have a food bag, that's important. The other thing I want to say about attack is that there are foods in this game that aren't that hard to make. One in particular takes 2 very common resources that you can just farm at your base. And then the last ingredient is found with a pal that is all over the map in abundance. And it gives you 20% higher attack. 20% on 100 is 120. So what does 2 points give you? Not jack shit. So I'm going to say that's a stat you really don't need. And that's my defense for it. The other stat I want to talk about not making a difference is defense, because you can't actually increase it. You just have to get different armor. Well, I put a stat on my player's stat board that I can't touch. Sure, later on in the game, you can see it go up and down when you put different armors on. But by that time, you've already realized you need stronger armors, and it really doesn't matter. And the armors have the ratings right on them. You just scroll over your armor. The only ones that make any difference is your weight carry, your stamina, and your health. I'm not going to go into why. It's kind of self-explanatory. So overall, the character build, I would give a 4 out of 10. I think it was below average compared to other games. They could have done a lot more with it, and they could have made it much more meaningful. So I don't think that was an average character build in this game. The next thing I want to talk about is the music. Music in this game wasn't bad. The choice wasn't bad. They did an okay job. I just want to I want to explain why I'm giving the score I'm giving. Palworld has a soundtrack of 17. Like, the total number of soundtracks in their game is 17. Ark has 26. Rust has 29. Elden Ring has 67. And Breath of the Wild had 211. And Palworld is sitting at 17. So it is well below average for their soundtrack, but because their music that they did choose was decent, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10, say it's above average, because I just don't feel like a below average score. I don't think this game deserves it, even though they have a lower number in their soundtrack. I think it was okay. I think it was good. The sound effects. There was no notable bad sound effects in this game. Nothing was really missing. I will say it wasn't like I listened to this game and I was like, wow, that's crazy. They did an amazing job. So I'm going to give them a 9 out of 10. I think that's completely fair. It didn't blow my mind. Their sound effects didn't blow me away. But it was definitely there, and it was completely fine. I never noticed anything about them. The playability falls into two categories. It's the usability and the enjoyment of the game overall. As you guys can maybe make out, my default run kind of blew. But I do understand that a lot of people are having fun modding this game right now. So I am going to split the difference and say the enjoyability of this game is a 3 out of 5. So there's two categories, so it's 5. So it's a 3 out of 5. And the usability of this game, getting on this game and actually being able to use the game for what it's made for, I'm giving a 4 out of 5 because of all the bugs. And I think that's fair because there are a lot of bugs. So the playability overall, I would give a 7 out of 10. Replay value falls into two categories. It falls into the default and the custom. The replay value for a default runner like myself, I would say a 1 out of 5. It wasn't fun. I would never do it again. If this game stays the same way it is right now, I will never play it again. Custom running solo. Custom running with your friends. This means modding. Going into your settings and changing the game. Playing it how you want. I would give it a 4 out of 5. I think they did a really good job with it. I think a lot of people are having fun. You know, that's an 80 percentile on that mark. And I think that's completely fair. A lot of people are having fun with this. So overall, that score, the replay value of this game is going to be a 5 out of 10. The cost value. Everyone says this. Everyone talks about it. Why not throw it in as one of my marks? The cost value of this game is amazing. This game has so much value if you play it a certain way. If you mod this game, I think this game has so many hours of fun play to it that $30 is just amazing. I would never say the cost value for the default run. I mean, sure, $30 for that. It's kind of a wash. Like, how could you complain? I would still play it. You know, I did. But for what you get when you mod this game, it is above and beyond any other game. And I give it a 9 out of 10. The only thing I docked it on was because it's early access and it has all the bugs. I know people exclude bugs from early access reviews. I'm not. Those are things that they should work on. You know, let's be real. I am rating this for what it is right now. The game length is the next category. For the default game length, you guys heard me say it earlier, I put 140 hours into this game default blind running, and it blew. I got 35 hours of enjoyability. That's about where I got really frustrated with this game, and I knew it was going to be a grind, and I just sat and grinded. So I would say a 1 out of 5 for default, and for custom, it's pretty much endless enjoyment. For modding this game, you have endless lengths of time that you can spend with you and your friends modding this game, doing whatever you want. So 5 out of 5 for that. Total overall, 6 out of 10. The concept behind this game is the next category. You got Breath of the Wild, you got Elden Ring, you got Ark, you got Valheim, you got Pokemon. Everyone knows these things. I think they took games that were absolutely solid and they threw them into Palworld, which is the best idea I think I have ever seen behind a game. I do dock them because that also means their originality falters. Their thought to do it is amazing, but they have very little of their own making in this game. So I give them an 8 out of 10, which I think is a perfectly reasonable score for that. Next category is the direction. I already said that the scaling in this game went completely AWOL halfway through. The direction went with it. You feel like you're going somewhere in the beginning. You feel like you know what you're doing. And then you hit this wall and you are just confused. You don't know where to go. It doesn't make sense anymore. Nothing was really clicking how it was the first 25 hours of the game. The other thing is the direction. They don't have anything telling you what to do other than the towers are the key, the tree holds the truth. That is the only direction you get. So a 2 out of 10 is my final score for that. I think that is more than what they deserve because this game has nothing in it to tell the player how to get from start to finish other than go to the towers. The complexity of this game, we're talking the vastness of this game, all the things you can do and all the things you can see, all the things you can interact with. It's above average, but it's not amazing. So I'm giving it a 6 out of 10 for that category. That is the end of the categories and the review scores. The total comes out to a 6.65. And I am going to round down to a 6 out of 10 for this game overall. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go a little more in depth into what all is going on with this game and just kind of talk about my thoughts. I'm also going to announce a new challenge that I want to put out on every single game that I cover. So if you guys want to hear about that, stick around. Alright guys, we're going to talk about Palworld and what I thought. It's just my overall off the top of my head comments. I said a lot of this in my review, but I really want to say that this game, the beginning of it's amazing. And if you're modding this game, you're going to have so much fun. And I wish I would have. I just happened to say that I was going to blind run default this game. And I had never seen it. And I had a miserable time. I'm telling you, it was absolutely horrendous. It has been a long time since I stumbled, fumbled, and bumbled through a game as hard as I did on this one. But I made it out the other side. I wanted to say that, overall, this game was a lot of fun. Once I figured out what the F I needed to do and all the grinding that I needed to put into it, I wished so many times that I would just go change my settings. And I actually did do this default the entire way just to know the frustration. And I want you guys to understand it was some hella frustration to do this game. I will say the boss battles at the end were so much fun. I don't know why they did this copy and paste on boss battles in this game. That's something I missed in my review. The boss battles are all copy and paste. Every boss is just kind of the same exact battle. I mean, the moves are very similar. They look the same. Instead of, if you're fighting a fire pal versus a grass pal, they do the exact same tornadoes. It's just a different element. They don't mix and match the attack moves that they do very well. So everything just feels like copy paste, copy paste. Your boss battles are copy and paste, your dungeons are copy and paste, and the pals later on are recycled, and everything just feels like a copy and paste at the end until you get to like the end. And what I'm talking about is like, I think they call them legendaries. The end game legendary guys are so much fun. They are so challenging, but they're completely beatable. And everything is so great until you hit the towers. I think it was the 4th and 5th tower. You struggle so hard on those. And I noticed that it really means something to have different guns. So on my guy right now on the screen, I was farming a guy for XP in my playthrough videos, and he dropped this gun, and it literally made the game for me. After that, I could pump so much DPS. It was night and day. There was no way, even with the rocket launcher at 11,000 damage, and this is only at 540, whatever it just said on my screen. That was the make or break. I wouldn't have been able to beat this game without that gun right there. That's how important it is to continuously farm items in this game. The armors I have aren't standard either. You can see that I actually, when I ran into the last tower, I actually threw this armor on. It's in the cold, so I'm wearing this. And then I threw that on once I got in there because it just makes such a big difference. I probably would have died. The last battle, the tower battle, once you get the right equipment, is so much fun. Once you get those legendaries and catch them, this game is so much fun. I have so much hope for Palworld in the future. I hope that they touch up their graphics because you can see that tree is kind of gnarly. I hope that they touch up their bugs because if they really polish this game, this would be such a fun game. They could put so much DLC. I mean, you're on an island in the middle of the ocean and it's endless. You can do whatever you want. It could go wherever they want to with this, and I hope they take it and run. Honestly, I'm kind of afraid they're not gonna though. I know that they're doing a DLC right now. I just made a video on it. And if they're making DLCs and boss raids and they're focusing on online content and stuff like that, I don't think they're going to be focusing on much of the game until later on. And that's scary. So just be warned about that. I did want to speak about a new idea I had. I mentioned it at the end of my playthrough. I had a rant video, and it was a rant on the difficulty change halfway through the game, which I've talked about a few times now. And in that rant, when I talked about it, the commenters that I got were absolutely upset at me. They were just pissed that I said this game changed its difficulty, and all of them kept saying that, oh, it's easy if you mod, it's easy if you mod, and they didn't realize I was blind running it, or default running it. The other thing they said was that I was a terrible gamer, and it's really easy, and that they beat every boss 10 to 15 levels lower than the boss was. So I went back and I reread these comments. And I understand, like, trolls are trolls and haters are haters. But it got me thinking, and I'm kind of glad they said all this. Because I was thinking about it, and I was like, before I started this channel, I was a platinum gamer, and I love hard challenges. So I thought for an idea for this channel would be to give a physical trophy to people who complete my challenge that I make up, which would recognize them as an amazing gamer, like a truly good gamer. I'm going to debate this every single game I play from here on. I'm going to have rules behind it. They send me the right criteria and prove that they completed my challenge the way I wanted them to. It's going to be based off the topic that was in my rant and the comments that I got back. It is going to be based around what those people said that they could do. I think it's going to be cool. I really want somebody to beat it. The challenge I'm putting out, I think I could do it, but it would be very tough. I'm excited for it, and I hope you guys are excited for it if you're watching this. So look for that video if you have any desire to do that. I think everyone should be able to participate as long as you own some sort of camera. I will give more details on that in the video. I hope you guys liked all of this. I hope you liked the review. I hope you liked the commentary. And I hope you liked the idea about the gamer challenge. I will see you guys on the next one.